What is going on, everybody? Week of actually the start of the second half of the NFL season. We have already played half of the games, week 9. You talk about it now. You know, when there were 16 games, there really week 8, week 9. But now, with there being 18 weeks, there is a definitive halfway point. And honestly, we know where most of the teams stand. We have a little bit of an idea of who's going to be competed for playoff spots, who could be competing for the higher seeds, whose seasons are done, and at this point are focused all on April's draft. The trade deadline is today in a couple hours, to go along with something else happening tonight. But anyways, with that being said, obviously, it's a very, another week of good games. And I really feel like as you enter this point in the season, you're starting to get a lot of these matchups where teams are actually really playing, important games that are really now, fighting for what their seasons could look like in January. And then the teams that are not in such a good position are looking to play spoiler. So without further ado, let's get this started. Last week, I went 9-6, and that's pretty all right. I feel like I could have done better, but that's pretty all right. Overall record, 84-54. Lock of the week, 8-1, and upset of the week, 0-9. I still have not hit on an upset of the week. So listen, I gotta hit on one at some. Teams on byes. We got a couple teams on bye weeks. The Cleveland Browns, 2-7, and obviously hasn't been the best season for them. They are on a bye. The Las Vegas Raiders, I believe they are also 2-7. Hasn't been a great season for them either. They are on a bye as well. The Green Bay Packers, they just suffered a loss to the Detroit Lions, so they're going into a bye week. Still in a good spot, still 6-3, right in the thicket in the NFC, but nonetheless, still in a position to where you want to clean some things up. And Seattle's on a bye. Also, they had an amazing start to the year, but I believe they've lost like 5 out of their last 6 games or something like that. So they definitely are going to look to, try to get back in this thing coming out of their bye week. Starting off with Thursday Night Football, and it's a fun matchup, and it's a big matchup as well. The Cincinnati Bengals, 4-5, really in a spot where they're looking for a big win to get back in it in the AFC, going up against the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. Obviously, it's going to be a very tough matchup for Cincinnati. And look, this is one of these games where I really don't feel that confident in this pick because it feels like this game could go either way. But I am going to pick the Bengals here. I'm going to pick the Bengals, and I really feel like this could end up being game of the week when we look at it. These are two offenses that can really do a lot of damage. These are two teams that I really think you look at and say are absolutely still, even with Cincinnati being under 500, they have a lot of talent on that team. And Baltimore, we know they are clearly still one of the best teams in the AFC. But it just feels like with Baltimore, some of these losses they've had, like the loss versus the Raiders and the loss versus the Browns, those are games you should have absolutely won. So it really feels like a game that is 50-50, and Cincinnati is fighting for their lives in many instances. So I do think the Bengals will come out and get the win in this one. Next game here, a 9:30 start in Germany. And man, this is, You want to talk about one final gift to Germany for World War II. This might be it. 2-2-7 football teams, the New York Giants and the Carolina Panthers. Panthers got their first win since week 3 versus the Aints last week. And the Giants really these past few weeks have just been losing games. They haven't been able to come through. And I don't expect this to be a pretty football game. But I just feel like the Giants are due for a win, and I do feel like they are a slight edge better than the Panthers. I feel like the Giants, there is stuff to work with there. They just don't have the quarterback. Whereas with Carolina, I just think in general it is a mess. So I got to give this one to the Giants here. I think they pick up the win. To get their third win of the year, Panthers dropped to 2-8. Heading into the 1 o'clock window, the New England Patriots, another 2-7 team, obviously hasn't been a great year for them. Drake May has showed flashes. And it is going to be the number 3 pick traveling to face the number 1 pick, the Chicago Bears, at 4-4. And man, you really want to talk about it. A few weeks ago, expectations were high for Chicago. Now they've kind of come back down to earth. I think people are really questioning Matt Eberflus as a coach. But I feel like if you want to stay in that playoff race, you got to win this game. You got to take care of business, and I feel like they will. I just feel like with New England, I think they really do have something in Drake May, but I just feel like I don't know if Mayo is really the answer at coach. And there's obviously many spots of their team that still has to be filled in this offseason. So, Bears, better team at home. Got to give them the win. Next game, NFC matchup between two teams, really on the cusp of, that playoff line. The San Francisco 49ers, the defending NFC champions. It's been up and down, up to this point. But they are getting Christian McCaffrey back. And that is absolutely huge for them. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 4-5. They lost 3 straight games. A heartbreaker last night in Kansas City. So look, it's going to obviously be Tampa feels like they got to get a win. San Francisco really wants to get their season back on track. And AFC West, that's for the taking right now. Really get in a spot to where they can be in a good position to be at the top of that division. I got to give this to San Francisco. They're the better team. Now, honestly, I feel like if you are looking at another game that maybe is an upset, because it's not like Tampa has been playing bad football. They have been playing relatively good ball. They've just fell short in some of these games. They're dealing with injuries right now. However, I just feel like San Francisco's the better team. They're getting a lot of their guys back. McCaffrey's going to be back. And they really got to start get rolling at some point, and I feel like it could be here. Next game, the Denver Broncos, 5-4, and Bo Nix looking pretty good, going to the undefeated 8-0 Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs, I think we can all agree, obviously, are 8-0, and, once again, it is classic Chiefs, even though they've done it a lot with their defense. Last night, Patrick Mahomes really, in the way I see it, had his first game all year where you can say that he went out and he made the plays for the Chiefs to win that game. They got the ball first in overtime, but they did the work with him in that running game. Last night was really the first game I think you could point at all year and say Kansas City's offense single-handedly won that game, at least maybe since week 1. But even still, I really feel like we've been looking for that spot that the Chiefs, they win a game with their offense. And I think last night was the first time they got 30 points all year long. Now, listen, Kansas City has, even though they are 8-0, they've been playing a lot of these games way too close. They played week 1 too close. They played week 2, week 3. You talk about it, really the only game they won all year pretty convincingly is, shocker, the game versus the Aints. They, and I mean, they ran away with that San Francisco game late, but the 49ers still had a chance. So you could say they won that one, kind of convincingly also. But last night versus Tampa, that game honestly shouldn't have been that close. They're due for a loss, and they're due for a big loss. And I really feel like Denver is in a position to go into Arrowhead and maybe pull off the biggest upset of the year so far. And Denver's a good team. So I feel like it's absolutely plausible. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to give the Broncos the win here. I know it has the scores flip, but I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to give Denver the win here, 21-19. And I feel like they're going to pull off maybe the upset of the year, giving the Chiefs their first loss in Arrowhead. And they go to 6-4. Denver's a good team this year. They really got things rolling with Sean Payton and Bo Nix. I think that's a game they win. Next game we have here, the Buffalo Bills and the Indianapolis Colts. Buffalo's been rolling so far, and the Colts, I really feel like, with Joe Flacco, obviously they're expecting more, polished and sharp quarterback play. They did not get that versus the Vikings on Sunday night. And Buffalo's just playing good football. Now, I could see this being, one of those games where the Colts hang around, but I feel like in the end, the better team's going to win. Buffalo, that offense is rolling. Josh Allen looks like maybe the front runner for the MVP, him and Lamar Jackson. So I got to go ahead. Got to give this one to Buffalo. They go to 8-2 on the year. Next game here, you want to talk about a good game we have here, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they have no doubt been the shocking story of the NFL so far this year. Pittsburgh is looking good at quarterback. I really, though, feel like that Washington is due for another loss. And even though, yes, they've been winning these games, they're due for a loss at some point. And it just feels like this is the spot where they lose to a Pittsburgh team that is still really good. Can you say maybe Pittsburgh 7-2? I don't know. But they're still a really good football team nonetheless. And I feel like they're going to go into Washington and, listen, Pittsburgh's defense could give Jaden Daniels, maybe that first, I don't know if I should really say this, because Jaden Daniels it feels like he's been doing solid every week, but maybe that first little letdown game for Washington. So I got to go ahead and give Pittsburgh the win here. Next game is the Minnesota Vikings and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, this feels like another one of those games that it's just Minnesota feels like they should win. But Jacksonville, even though I don't think they're good, I still feel like they are better than 2-7. And just the way that I see it, it feels like Minnesota is due for a loss. And I got to give this one to Jacksonville. Another upset. I feel like this could be an upset week around the league. Just looking at some of these games, it feels like a spot where a lot of upsets could happen. So I got to give this to Jacksonville. I think they do win this game. The Vikings, I really think, have come down to earth. So got to keep some game here, and oh man, this is one unique Falcons Saints. I'm gonna talk about it obviously later in the week. It's hate week, there's a lot of shit thrown around. But listen, this is probably the first time I can remember in a while that the Falcons have come into a game versus the Saints clear-cut favorites. They fired Dennis Allen. They have a new interim head coach. And listen, I'm not going to lie. considering the other nature of how I see some of these games, this spot absolutely scares me as a Falcons fan because this is without a shadow of a doubt, and I remember it 5 years ago that the Falcons went in kind of in the spot the Saints were in. It beat a really good Saints team in New Orleans. So it can happen. Now I'm going to get the Falcons to win here. I do feel like we will go down there and ultimately take care of business. And we should honestly stomp the Saints into the ground by 2 touchdowns. But I still feel like that nonetheless, you got to come and play. Because if you sleep on the Saints, they are absolutely scary in this type of spot, as any team would honestly be with an interim coach. Well, I'm going to give the Falcons a win here. I'll talk about it later in the week. Next game, moving into 4 o'clock. Tennessee, it feels like there's just a lot of things off with that team. You look at Los Angeles, they are clearly, they're still chasing the Chiefs, obviously, but they are also in a really, I want to pinpoint a game that I feel like could be lock of the week. I'm going to put it with this one because I really do feel like that I just don't see how Tennessee wins this game. I just don't. So I got to go ahead and give this to the Chargers. Next game, we have the Arizona Cardinals, the NFC West leading Arizona Cardinals, welcoming in the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers, who got a win against the Texans on Thursday Night Football and are going to look to try to build some momentum. Now, the Cardinals have been playing really solid football. They've kind of been another surprise. I don't think too many people were expecting Arizona to be atop of this division. They're going to look to stay there. But this feels like a Aaron Rodgers spot to win. It does. Aaron Rodgers has had some big plays in the stadium in the past, had some big moments. I really feel like with where the Jets currently are, that there's no margin for error if they want to somehow turn this around. So I got to go ahead and I got to give it to the Jets here. I think they get a win. I think Arizona, it's time for them to drop a game. And I got to give the Jets a win. Next game we have here is the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys NFC East matchup. Philadelphia is going to look to really continue rolling, man. The Eagles have been, ever since that early portion of the year going into their bye, the Eagles have been rolling. They've gotten, I believe, 4 straight wins. And they're playing some really good football right now. But the thing with this matchup, and Dak Prescott's going on IR, Cooper Rush is going to be the starting quarterback. I'd have to assume maybe we see Trey Lance. This just feels like Dallas is due. They haven't won a game at home all year. And as I say, this could really be an upset week around the league. It just feels like one of these weeks, looking at these slated games, it's an upset week. So I got to give this to Dallas. I think they come out, and I think they're going to be fired up to play the Eagles. They've lost 3 straight games. I think the question has to be, it cannot be too much longer before they get another win. So I got to go ahead, got to give this to Dallas here. Sunday Night Football in Houston. Man, this is a really fun matchup. You want to just talk about being a football fan. This is a matchup that actually excites me in many ways. The Detroit Lions at the Houston Texans. I really feel like, that this game could go either way. You could see the Lions winning this game. They've been very hot as of late. Some may argue they might be the best team in the NFL, better than the Chiefs. They are no doubt the best team in the NFC, I believe. And with Houston, though, the thing is this. They have C.J. Stroud. Obviously, they're banged up. They're dealing with injuries. But when you have a quarterback, that is a big part of the equation. And I really feel like C.J. Stroud still gives them a fighter's chance. And I got to go with Houston here. Home team, and I feel like the Lions are due for a loss. Houston's the home team. I feel like it's going to be a really, really fun matchup. But I'm going to go with the Texans by a touchdown. I feel like they pull it off. And to end the week off on Monday Night Football, the Miami Dolphins at the LA Rams. The Rams have been really hot. I believe they won 3 straight games. And the Dolphins, they've just been falling short in a lot of these matchups. They fell short in Buffalo, fell short versus Arizona. So you'd have to maybe think that the Dolphins are due for a win. But when you're having to travel across the country, now it is an extra day. You're having to travel across the country and face a Rams team that's been really hot in their house on Monday night. That can make it tough. So I got to go with the Rams here. I think they have a good showing overall, and they pick up the win. And with all that being said, Week 10, obviously, another solid week of matchups. I really feel like this could be one of those weeks in the NFL. Anyways, man, let's get it. Another solid week of games, and I will see you all in the next one.